In this video, I'll go over the shortcuts on how to draw faster with a grease pencil using Whippet. Whippet provides some shortcuts and keyframe management tools that help you draw faster and have a similar panel-to-panel experience like you would have in Storyboard Pro. If you go to the installation and settings page in the documentation and you scroll down to keyboard shortcuts, you can see the list of keyboard shortcuts here. If you install the key map that comes with Whippet, then you'll have these automatically. Otherwise, you can manually add your own keyboard shortcuts, which I've shown how to do in this video below. Okay, so you can go to the GP Tools menu and you can basically see all the different keyframe management buttons. A lot of these are mapped to keyboard shortcuts. So just to quickly cover what the buttons do here, if you hit New, it'll increase a new drawing. Duplicate will duplicate the drawing. Clear layers basically just deletes all the strokes across all layers that are unlocked. Deleting the keyframe will actually delete all the keyframes that are unlocked. And here you can add multiple keyframes. So if you're just like sketching and doodling, that's what I use it for. And then frame hold, what this does is just determines the number of frames between each drawing. So you can adjust this however you want. It's default set to 12. So every 2 drawings is roughly a second. And then, but if you want to like animate on 3s, you know, you can add that in. And then every time you add a new drawing, it'll space out every 3 frames. Retain timing, I'll show this in a minute, but what it does is it makes sure that there's the same number of frames that you had before when inserting an in-between. So I'll show you that in a minute. And then here you have keyframe flipping options, which essentially allow you to jump between keyframes as if you were going panel to panel in Storyboard Pro. So the first shortcut is Shift F, and that will insert a brand new drawing or grease pencil keyframe. So again, that's just like hitting new. So if I draw something now, we have a little stick figure, and if I hit Shift F again, then we have a new drawing. So this is a very fast way of going panel to panel. And if I want to jump between drawings, I can hit A and F to go backwards and forwards. So those are my keyboard shortcuts for being able to go faster. And again, that's just hitting previous key and next key. A and F work best over the viewport, so just keep that in mind. The entire point of these shortcuts is to work over your canvas, your 3D viewport, so you don't have to touch the dope sheet. To duplicate a drawing, you can just hit Shift D. So Shift F is a new drawing, Shift D is a duplicate. So here, if I go back to the previous drawing, and the next one I have the same drawing. If I add a little hat, I can hit Shift D again, and now I have the exact same drawing again. If I want to clear all the strokes on a given keyframe, then I can hit D. That'll delete all the keyframes. That's like holding 3 fingers on a Procreate or something. It just keeps the keyframe, but it removes the drawings. To delete the actual keyframe here, you can hit Control D over the viewport, and that'll actually remove the entire keyframe. So let's say I want to insert an in-between here with retain timing on. What you'll see is if I hit Shift F, it'll just move everything over and ensure that there's 12 frames between the new drawing and the previous next drawing. So here we have the drawing with the hat, and now we have our in between and then the drawing before. You can turn on onion skins up here and make sure you have overlays on, and then you go into onion skins. There's a couple of extra features when flipping through keyframes. We can decide whether or not to flip only through grease pencil keyframes, the active layer, and loop frames. For example, if I just go ahead and insert object keys for this character, switch to the dope sheet. Let's say I have just different object keys that are spread out. So now if I go into draw mode, I can A and F between all the keyframes. So not just grease pencil keyframes, but also object level keyframes. If you want to ignore object level, let's say you have these like offset and you just want to flip between drawings, you can hit GP keys. And then this will now just jump between only the grease pencil keyframes. If you only want to jump to the next active layer keyframe, you can tick this on, and then that will basically ignore any other keyframe from any other layer. So let's just say I delete this layer keyframe and I hit F now, it'll just jump between any keyframe that's on the line layer. And then to loop keyframes, we'll tick this on, and what this will do is basically just loop from the end to the beginning again of a scene frame range. If you want a custom range to flip through, then you can hit P over the dope sheet to open, which basically comes up with this like box draw thing to have a preview range set. So you can click, drag, and then now you'll have this red area. And what this does is essentially sets the Blender frame range to this preview range. And then now as I'm hitting F, I'm looping to the start of that preview range. So this is helpful if you want to just like isolate a series of drawings and just loop through that, and then hit Alt P to clear the preview range. All these same options that are here in the end panel are also here on the dope sheet right here. So you can like quickly just drag and select them, or, you know, jump between keyframes like this. If you would prefer to just only insert a new keyframe for just a line layer and not have keyframes added for all layers, like if you have a grease pencil object with 5 layers, then all you need to do is, I'll just go ahead and delete all this stuff. Basically, you can just lock the fill layer and all your other layers and make sure you're on your line layer. And then now if I hit Shift F, it'll only insert a keyframe for only unlocked layers. So a lot of people prefer to just have keyframes added for a specific layer and not having a bunch of different keyframes for all layers. And then what you would do is if you want to go in and fill, you know, your new drawing, you can lock your line layer, unlock your fill, and go to make sure you're on your fill layer. And then so long as you have the active layer toggled off, you can just hit F and it will go to the next drawing. And then here you would, you know, fill in your line work. The next feature I want to show is the pin materials feature. This essentially just remembers what material you had last selected on a per layer basis. So let's say for the line layer, I switch to a red stroke and I draw, and then I want to go back to the fill material, or the fill layer. You can select that here. You can see it went back to the black stroke, but if we want to switch it to the white fill, or let's do light gray. And then in 5.1, you want to make sure you actually have the fill stroke brush method selected up here. This is a new thing. For 5.0, we don't have that. You would just need a separate material with a fill and not a stroke. But up here, make sure you're on fill. And then now I can draw like a lasso fill. And then if I want to go back to the line layer, it'll automatically select the red stroke. So I can but yeah, you have to remember to go back to stroke. And then I can then, you know, go back and forth and it'll remember the material setting. I will work on a feature where it remembers the actual brush stroke method as well. That way you have a more consistent experience. You don't have to keep switching this back and forth. One last thing is if you go over to the GP menus, you can actually access all of the basic grease pencil menus. So you have layers here, you have your materials, you've got your brush selection and some quick brush settings. Down here is your grease pencil effects. So when you add a blur effect, remember you have to be in rendered mode. So if you come up here and hit the last circle for viewport shading, which is rendered, then you have that. Just note when you use this, these VFX are given drivers and they're only active during the shot that you add them in. So it won't be active for the next shot. I'll show a better example of this when we're in 3D, but just worth noting. And Whippet comes with a custom pop-up menu, which is bound to right click when you're in draw mode. So if you just hit right click, it basically brings up all of these grease pencil menus again on the fly. This is a bit faster and it's easier to select. So generally I actually don't really access the grease pencil tools here. It's just faster to kind of on the fly select here, adjust everything. So that covers the basic grease pencil features and how I draw faster. I'll show more things as we go on, like the rest of the grease pencil tools when we get into a 3D scene.